Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. Today, we're going over all of the December 2022 VR game releases. While the list itself might not be too long, there's 3 huge games releasing, plus some other titles that many of you might have been waiting for. And after we make it through December's list, I just want to remind you guys of a few games that I'm really looking forward to that failed to release in 2022. Now, I do want to mention that all of these release dates either came from the game's developers or directly from Meta, but dates are always subject to change, and it wouldn't be the first time that Meta's given me less than perfect information. Now, there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but let's start the list off with The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution. Now, I've been mentioning this title to death lately, but it's still one of the biggest VR game releases remaining in 2022. It features a 15+ hour story-driven campaign, a scavenging system, weapon crafting, some excessively brutal combat, and you'll have control over the storyline. Now, the wait is almost over for the sequel of one of the best VR games ever made, and on this Thursday, December 1st, Quest 2 owners will be able to jump into this game. Now, the original Saints and Sinners was on the Quest 1, so you can expect upgraded graphics, more enemies on screen at a time, and you're also getting plenty of new weapons, an expanded crafting system, and a significantly longer single-player campaign. The developers are already planning additional DLC, but if you're holding out for a co-op mode, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Now, if you enjoy story-driven adventure titles, but Saints and Sinners is a little bit too spooky for you, well then I recommend you check out Hubris. Hubris features absolutely stunning graphics that could compete with Half-Life Alyx, a truly intriguing storyline that has you crash landing on an alien world, swimming, climbing, and platforming mechanics, sci-fi based combat, and even some puzzle solving. A few months ago, I tried an hour-long demo and was absolutely blown away, so I can't wait for the full release of this title, which is coming on next Wednesday, December 7th. Now, next Thursday, December 8th, will be a motley crew of new releases, starting with an official Quest Store release of the viral title Gorilla Tag. If you're not familiar with this free title, it has you entering a lo-fi jungle, utilizing unique mechanics to move your legless gorilla. The concept is easy enough, but it's extremely hard to master. And from here, you can play some games of tag, or just hang out in both public and private rooms. Once again, this title is free and features cross-play with the PCVR version. Now, if that's not enough action for you, we have World War II's Tank Arena. This hyper-casual, cartoony, tank-driving arena shooter just wants you to jump right in and have a good time. There's no overly complex mechanics, and combat is designed to be perfectly balanced, so you could hop right in and just start blasting your enemies. Titles like this always look like a good time, but I'm just concerned about its longevity. There's nothing worse than a shooter with a dried-out player base. Now, if competitive multiplayer isn't your scene, why not build your own virtual arcade with Arcade Legend? There's plenty of officially licensed games that you could experience with your friends, win tickets and prizes just like at a classic arcade, and in this game you'll also be working to restore your old facility and unlock secret areas to expand your venue and go from a simple arcade all the way to a world-class playground that you can experience online with other people. Overall, this is a really unique concept, and I could see people having a lot of casual fun here. Now, speaking of unique games, we have the puzzle title Linelight VR. Now, this was a highly addictive flat screen game where your only mechanic is movement. This title describes itself as there's no jump button, there's no shoot button, the way you move creates a universe of possibilities and one mind-bending experience. The reviews of the flat screen version seem to agree, and now we'll get to experience it from a new perspective. While it doesn't appear VR will elevate this to a whole new level, but who's going to turn down an extremely fun, inventive, and highly addictive title? For the casual puzzle game fans out there, I think you should put this one on your list. And our final game releasing on December 8th is the Quest port of the roguelite retro shooter Compound. Now, this is a beloved classic PCVR title that was in early access for years and just got better and better over time. It finally made it to full release earlier this year, and they announced that a Quest port will be coming before the end of 2022, and it looks like they just made it. If you've never checked out Compound, it's an action-packed, highly addictive, fast-paced shooter with some retro graphics that absolutely stand out in VR. The Steam reviews for this game are overwhelmingly positive, and now finally Questers will be able to enjoy it. Well, let's get back into the action with the 4-person co-op shooter Gambit. With graphics and gritty humor reminiscent of Borderlands, plus some shooter action like After the Fall, we'll soon have an excellent new co-op option to play. Gambit features a lengthy campaign, 4 separate playable characters, each with their own special abilities, a large array of unlockable and upgradable weapons, hidden items and secret areas on every level, and even some climbing parkour sections. There'll also be an online PvP mode for when you're bored of grinding out new weapons in the single player mode, and as someone who's already pumped a few hours into this title, I think you'll definitely enjoy this one, especially if you're looking for something a bit more mature themed. Crude humor and blood and guts is right up my alley. Now next up, we have some major updates to existing VR games. On December 14th, Population 1 is getting a brand new sandbox mode. Now this game recently had to drop its Quest 1 users to make major new upgrades like this possible. And in the near future, Population 1 is going to be taken to a whole new level with some user-generated content. You'll no longer be restricted to that one battle royale world, or even the battle royale genre itself. You could create an endless variety of games, all with unique locations. Or maybe you just want to create a chill hangout space with people online. Now it's fine if you're not interested in creating new content, but soon you'll have a lot more to explore in this extremely popular title. Now another that didn't release in 2022, and we'll just have to keep an eye on as we move into 2023. First up is Praydog's Universal mod injector. Praydog's already known for doing some amazing flat to VR game mods, but they're working on a universal injector that works with all Unreal Engine titles. Now it won't exactly be snap your fingers and all of a sudden we have hundreds of new VR games to play, but it's an absolutely amazing starting point and will make many more titles available in the near future. These titles will have 6 degrees of freedom, full motion controls, and developers will just need to iron out any kinks that are specific to the title itself. This can include interpreting specific motion controls, accounting for cutscenes, or additional adjustments to avoid motion sickness. There's already a huge assortment of titles that are implementing this injector, and 2023 looks like it's going to be another huge year for VR game mods. But on the disappointment side, there were a few titles I hoped to see released this year that just didn't make it. The first was the comic book stylized, exceptionally brutal, story-driven action title Samurai Slaughterhouse. I was extremely intrigued with some of the early demos I played, and I loved stabbing my enemies and watching a stream of blood pour out. While it may not appear to be a looker on flat screen, in VR this game definitely shines, and I just really enjoyed the combat and sense of style. Continuing with my disappointment, we have Vertigo 2. This has been one of my most anticipated titles throughout all of 2022, and after hearing the game is playable from beginning to end, and just receiving some extra polish, I thought we were destined to get it this year. Now, all hope is not lost, and the game could still release in 2022, as the developer recently announced that we're getting a brand new trailer and the official release date next week on December 7th. So fingers crossed we still get this game in 2022. Now, if you're not familiar with this first-person shooter, it's basically Half-Life meets Rick and Morty. There's an absolutely fantastic 45-minute demo available on Steam right now, so if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. It shines graphically, mechanically, storytelling-wise, and it feels like much more of a full-fledged title than we typically get from VR. I know I've said it 100 times before, but if the original Half-Life series had a baby with Rick and Morty, it would be this game. Now, I was definitely a bit too optimistic with Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord, and I should have never expected this 4-person co-op ghost hunting title to release in 2022, especially since End Dreams only gave us a CGI trailer and said it was coming to the PlayStation VR 2. Now, before we get to my biggest disappointment, this video is sponsored by Kiwi Design, one of my favorite sites for VR accessories. They recently released some new Quest 2 headphones that promise to pack some extra bass and increase your audio experience. They currently have my favorite Quest 2 Elite strap with battery pack, and there's plenty of other accessories like enhanced controller grips, replacement facial covers, link cables, and much more. There's a link down in the description, and don't forget to use discount code Mateo311 for 5% off and to help support this channel. And the final delayed release that has disappointed me is a game I've mentioned 100 times recently, and that's Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution. Now, if you're confused about this one because I started the video talking about how Saints and Sinners is releasing on December 1st, well, that's only on the Quest 2. The PCVR version is delayed until February, the PlayStation VR 2 version is coming in March, and there is a PlayStation 1 version coming, but the date is yet to be announced. Now, I've demoed the game on both Quest 2 and PCVR, and I've decided I'm going to wait for the PCVR release, mainly because it looks so much better. That is a bit frustrating though, because I'm gonna end up waiting an additional 2 months or so. But I'm actually glad they're not rushing all versions out the door on the same date, because there's nothing worse than one platform getting a really buggy version. I'm looking at you, Cyberpunk, with your PlayStation 4 release, and you after the fall with your PlayStation VR release. But that was today's video, guys. Right now, I'm trying to decide which game I should cover. So if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments right now. Do you prefer game coverage, the news, or some hardware reviews? Now, if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, consider subscribing. And as always, I will see you guys on next time.